intlx Solutions, founded by engineers valued for our expertise.
Yeah, so I think that story that we were talking about was, I forget what year it was, Jeremy, but I think it was that we were working at Avaya, so it had to be in like you started in Avaya in 2006. So it had to be between, and I left in 2009, so somewhere in that little window right there, right? And I remember you were working on something, some script to do something when you're first learning Unix or Linux scripting. And we had another guy that we worked with, Timmy Donahue, really closely in our office, the three of us engineers. And Jeremy was accusing us of messing with his script or hiding it on him or deleting it.
Yeah, mind you, they would always be messing with me back in the early days or whatever. So this was status quo at the time, you know.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And then turns out, I forget what release of Red Hat it was on. They still had an old cron job in there that would go and clean up the temp directory once a month.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Jeremy, he had put this really handy script that he had spent hours crafting.
Yep.
He was saving it in the temp folder. And last time he...
Not thinking any better.
Last month.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, yeah. But,
they cleaned it up, all of a sudden my script just deleted, and I was like, "Where you guys are messing with me, right? Where's my code or whatever?"
Absolutely. And then I think you learned like the best way to learn.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I definitely had some pain points.
Because we're still talking about not leaving things in the temp folder 20 years later.
Yeah.
That tells me like there's no better way to learn a lesson, right? So that was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
I wish we could have seen. I wish we had a picture, how shocked you were when you figured out that that's what it was, because it was like Timmy and I were exonerated.
Oh yeah, we've always gone through. We've had so many. It seems like there are always incidents of me writing some sort of code or whatever.
Yes.
I remember when I was like building out like a lab script just to ping the network or whatever, just to figure out like what lab equipment was up or whatever.
Yep.
And then like you had to put in a subnet in there, and I didn't messed up the subnet, and it's code I wrote.
Yes.
And I ended up scanning all of Avaya's infrastructure, and I got like a call from the security team.
That's true.
Being like, "Hey, what are you doing?" or whatever. And
and then so we used to. I think part of it, and a lot of the reason I think we're talking about this stuff is like we still like to have fun at work. Like my motto for the company is, it's work. You only take it as seriously as you have to.
Absolutely.
And no more. Because there'll always be another escalation.
Yep.
There'll always be something hitting the fan the next day. There'll always be some product that breaks or whatever. So until then, like, enjoy in between and have fun. Like, have fun doing it. So we used to, at Avaya, we used to joke around a lot. So that incident when you had, put Avaya security onto your radar, and they started watching you, Timmy and I knew, you being a young, impressionable engineer, that this was an opportunity that we couldn't let go.
Yeah.
So we waited a little while, like a few days, and then we started doing those pop-ups about, hey, Avaya Security's on the phone.
Yeah.
They want to know who just did this and who, because we would watch, you'd be like, guys, I'm going into the lab to plug in this server. And Timmy would be like, should we do it now? And I was like, yeah, I think now's a good time. We'd pop up a message on your computer, please call 1-888 blah blah, because you just plugged in this host, and you were like, guys, should I call him? Am I going to lose my job? This sounds really serious. And that you were always so like innocent that it was we couldn't. You'd get us laughing a lot of times, so we'd ruin the joke. A few times we carried it all the way through, but that was practice on our part, not laughing. Right? We were both growing. Yeah, that's how we would look at it.
Absolutely, and then there was. I don't know if you remember when you guys put the beeping button on my phone, and then I'd come into the office, and then like you could send a signal button basically. Yeah. I'd come into the office, and like every now and then it would like my phone would beep. I'm like, what the heck is going on with it? So I'm sitting there, I'm taking MSTs of everything, and then they're just laughing in the background. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with these guys.
But if you look at it from a different perspective, after that experience of us messing with you putting on your phone, you were a lot better at taking traces.
Totally.
You're a lot better at understanding how the phone works.
Absolutely.
You're a lot better at packet capture. So one could argue that we were messing with you to be mean, or we were trying to help you become a better engineer.
Better engineer, absolutely.
That's how I look at it. We're never being malicious. It was always a lot of fun. But a history note is like on the old days, we didn't have that button on the Avaya phones, the signal.
Yeah.
We didn't have that, right? You couldn't just change your station and put that button on there and start messing with people. We used to have to go into TCM, the other interface, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't think anybody even knows what that stands for. It's one of those interfaces in the Avaya Communication Manager product that I think only Avaya has access to. But we had to use this UPLSND, uplink send. We had to use that command, and you had to put in the angel address of when it was a digital phone, and I think the user ID of the user and the button you wanted to play. You had to kind of dig deep to mess with people back then. There was a little bit more like respect in it when you had to mess with people back then, and it was really hard to catch, because you had to catch somebody like logged into the system actively messing with you. Because if you saw it in MST, you'd be like, why did the phone system send this to my, it makes no sense, right? Because there was no record of it, you know?
Right.
So it was a little bit easier to get away with back then. Yep. Yeah, and it's funny, you're talking about some of the stuff we've worked on in the past. I mean, I know we've had some really interesting troubles that we've worked on too. It's people forget that, but like we used to be on site a lot, and
All the time.
we had supporting customers in the Boston area.
Yep.
One customer I remember in particular, we'll leave the names out to protect the innocent, right? But they were having a problem with their phones. Their IP phones were just randomly rebooting, and you could not figure out what was going on.
And it was like the end of the day when this started happening. So we were there late into the night troubleshooting, and we were taking packet captures and everything. And
yes, yep, a lot of packet captures, and and that's a really good trouble to talk about, kind of like how we approach things in intlx, and the same things we did back then. You listen to the customer, and they tell you, hey, we have phones that are just, you're in the middle of a phone call, the phone just reboots, and we can't have that happen. We depend upon this thing, right? They're on calls, doing business, and they got to have the phone system stay up and work. And so we heard them, and when you looked at the systems, the folks who were working on this problem remotely were like, yeah, everything checks out. There's no alarms. There's none of this. There's none of that. We don't know what to do, right? But the customer's complaint is valid. I mean, we saw.
Oh, absolutely. When you're out on site, I mean.
So you roll up your sleeves, right? You dig in and you start collecting data, and sure enough, we were able to see it ourselves firsthand.
Yeah.
We started doing some packet captures, right, of what was going on in the network. And I think what we saw was we found another host that was pretending to be a DHCP server when it shouldn't have been. It was a really hard thing to find. We were able to kind of sit with the customer, trace it down to what MAC address of device was sending that out, and really identify it and nail it down. And after that, it was like we were able to really put that trouble to bed. But the point, that's the same logic I think we take at intlx. It's just like when we get something, we want to fix it. Like it isn't just a matter of closing out the ticket or kicking it over to this group for the sake of some nonsense metrics that only matter to some, nonsense shady power award that nobody's going to care about anyways. Customers want their stuff fixed, right? And I think that's what we do when this stuff comes in. We're able to kind of actually really look at it, get our arms around it from experiences like that when we were younger. And other people on our team too, we're talking about our personal experience. We have a lot of engineers at intlx, as you know, that have very similar experience to us, right? And so they kind of bring that like willingness and pride in what you do. Like, it's not over till it's fixed, right? And I think we didn't get to go home.
No, we didn't get up. We stayed on site, and I mean, like I said, I think some of the longest nights, I think it was like 48 hours I was out on site on some of these customers. So I mean, we were there. I mean, some of the things that we ended up getting were open for months and months and months, and we solved it within days.
Absolutely, that's what the team did. We were there to fix the things that I used to like to say in our old job there at Tier 3. It was like the land of misfit troubles, like that old Frosty the Snowman, Reindeer Reclamation Special, the land of misfit toys. Like it was like, we don't know what to do with this trouble. Give it to that team, because they don't know what product it is. They don't know if it's a customer network issue or whatever it is. So you got to start somewhere, and that's what they would give it to us. And like that skill of being able to kind of navigate those troubles, the really complex ones, figure out what to look at, and ultimately put it to bed. I think that kind of really permeates through what we do here, because we want to help the customers.
Absolutely,
we want to get this stuff fixed.
And I think that's really the goal, right? When a lot of people like troubleshoot things, they just kind of go into like looking at something and seeing what happens, instead of determining like what is really the problem that's kind of going on, and defining the problem, and then what are the pieces that are involved in that problem. And I would say that's even what we do even better here is we define the problems, and we get to like the root cause of a lot of these things. Instead of just taking it and closing a ticket out, we're really exploring like what's the root cause of this, and then bringing in true problem management, and making sure that these type of things don't happen again. Because usually a lot of times I think what happens is you're looking at symptoms over time, And from our perspective, we're looking at the whole picture of things instead of just
Right,
looking
right.
at one component.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
intlx Solutions. Empowering people, connecting businesses.